Join us in a festival that promises to be extraordinary because Bali is extraordinary.
Hi everyone, welcome to Ubud Writers and Readers Festival 2021. This year, the festival returns with the theme Mulat Sarira, Self-Reflection, which is drawn from a Balinese Hindu philosophy. From the 8th to the 17th of October, we will explore the meaning of self-reflection, cultural introspection, and human rights, examining who we are, what unites and divides us, and what drives our action. I am Ray Shabir, a writer and artist from Jakarta. My first book, Public Feelings and Other Acts of Anxiety, the following year. Recently, I also published my first poetry book collection titled Kink. We have with us today Mohammed Moussa. He's a journalist and poet from Gaza, Palestine. He's the host of Gaza podcast and the founder of the Gaza Poets Society. His poetry has been included in Love and Loss, an anthology by Gaza Poets Society, and most recently, he published a debut poetry collection titled Flamingo. And now, without further ado, I present to you Mohammed Moussa, writing in a time of conflict.
Hi Ray, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Mohammed?
I'm fine, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
It's a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you.
How's the weather there?
I mean, it's nice, a little bit cloudy, but good.
But good. It's really cloudy
autumn
here.
is here.
Yeah, same. Okay, so we can start it off probably as the first question. When did you write your first poem, and what was it?
I wrote the first poem in 2014. It was during the wartime. I was in my room alone, sounds of ambulances outside, sounds of bombing, and what I was experiencing at that time, what I was living, was choking me out. Like, I feel like I want to speak to the world and talk to the world in the tone of a poet or a poetry lover. At that time, I was a student of English literature, so I read a lot of poetry. I love. Sometimes I write, but it was the first time to write a full poem at that time, which was I was born in Gaza, to talk to the world and see if they might listen more in the tone of a poet or a poetry lover. The electricity at that time was 3 hours electricity a day during the days of war. So I opened my laptop and started typing what I was feeling at that moment. And the first poem came out. It was I was born in Gaza. Shared it on social media. Got hundreds of likes, shares, messages, and responses from people from all over the world responding to the poem and how the poem touched them and delivered the message at that time. As a young man in that part of the world, feeling disconnected, feeling betrayed, feeling alone, feeling terrified of that environment and the atmosphere of war.
Right. Do you mind sharing with us that poetry?
The poem?
Yeah, can you read it to us?
Yeah. So you just take like 5 seconds till I find the poem. Here it is.
Okay.
I was born in Gaza, the city of lost yearning, where memories fate, and hope goes missing. I was born there with a taste of despair memorialized on my tongue. I was born in a besieged land where death, deprivation, and poverty still invade. I was born in Gaza to redefine the meaning of peace and soothe the city of fears. Where I was born, dreams are buried alive, but I'm not scared to defy this throbbing life and beat the stormy winds of wars. I was born in Gaza, and one day I'll be back home.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. You wrote
It's
that
my
7
pleasure.
years ago.
In 2014, yeah.
14, yeah, 7 years ago. How do you relate to that poetry now, 7 years after?
I feel like it hasn't changed. It feels the same. Wars still,
Going on.
going on, and you see the attacks every now and then on Gaza, the same siege, the same number of victims, the same number of injured, the same way of attacking towers, attacking houses, attacking civilians, the same inhuman siege that has been imposed 13 years ago, still till now. What's different? Nothing. The question that I always will ask myself, and I always ask myself, when it will end, when I will write something different.
All right. And have you garnered more public reaction since you put it out?
Yes, from all over the world, people from different nationalities messaging me regarding the poem. And each time I post the poem, I see that people relate more and more to what is happening. I feel like they read it for the first time, or feel like it's the timing of the poem. The timing. Each time I post the poem, the people will relate to the poem, because the situation, never changes in Gaza.
Well, were you always interested in literature? And what sort of refuge did it provide you?
Always have been interested in literature. That's why I studied English literature at college, to open my eyes to the word literature. Because, English, you find the word literature translated into English. Most of the word literature will be translated into English. So it was a key. It was a way or a gate to open my eyes to the world literature and to English literature. Also, I studied English literature at college and fall in love with the drama, with the novels, with the poetry, with the art, with everything, honestly. And my love or my interest in literature was reading the novels I love, reading the poetry I love, and the sort of refuge that literature provided was the friends that I had right now, the poets from all over the world, the authors from all over the world. That's something irreplaceable and something unmatched. I will always feel grateful for literature, for allowing me, reading literature inspired me to write poetry, to read poetry, to love poetry, and to share poetry, and to get to know people from different cultures, and to understand the difference of others' cultures and others' beauty and others' rituals.
That's really nice. Yeah, same. I relate a lot to that, especially when you get to live other people's life for a little bit.
Yes.
Because I don't think when I was younger, I was trying to find myself in the book. Now, as we move to the into the future, there's a lot of demands for representation. But I think when I was younger, I was trying to always find someone who was not like me to read.
Why?
It's just introduced me to the world as well, seeing other
Yeah,
cultures and seeing other cities and imagine it. And then I think as I grew older and then we found the internet, what I imagined when I was younger is different. The city, like it doesn't look like anything that I imagined when I was younger. And then when you Google it, oh, this
definitely.
is what New York City looks like. So yeah,
It's
yeah,
not what I imagined it to be.
yeah. You said once that growing up in Gaza is inspiring for anyone, but especially for poets. Life here is
Yes.
poetry blown into pieces and scattered all over the place. What was it like growing up in Gaza?
It's tough. It's challenging. You be like, as I mentioned, 7-year-old, and you see a tank. You see soldiers. You see people get killed. People get injured. You see houses being attacked and turned into ashes in front of their eyes. But I mean, the feeling of losing your loved ones
Yeah,
is something terrible you grow up with in Gaza. You always are afraid and terrified of losing your family, for example, if you're losing your house, if you're losing
yeah,
the people you love, if you're losing your classmates, you're losing your friends. It's so hard that till now you still have that feeling and you grow up with that feeling. Then after that, as you grow up, you see like there is no future, and the scene is not clear, foggy. So you study at college, you are so excited you're a young man, so excited to prove yourself, but the environment there is something that could drain that energy and leave you alone, leave you abandoned, and leave you hopeless. And it all depends on you to reignite that energy in you, that feeling in you, and feel alive again through creating uh, healthy routines, or doing rituals that you like, or doing the things that you love, like reading, writing, playing. I remember in Gaza there are no parks,
mm,
so I remember playing football in the street barefoot
mm,
with the kids, playing what else? Yeah, we will feel like who's the brave one who will see the tank and wave at the tank, for example, or this and that. I mean, why would a kid in the world live that life? Why would a
yeah,
kid in the world come back from school and see dead people on the street, and see a bomb falling on uh, on a neighborhood next to their house, and come back home afraid if his family is okay or not, if everyone is safe or not? And you're surprised that one of your neighbors, one of the members of your neighbor's family has been killed or has been injured, or this and that. It's terrible to grow up in a life like this. But
yeah,
regarding the question that poetry is scattered all over the place, I mean, you find poetry there. You find poetry in funerals. You find poetry in weddings, on murals, in the streets. Poetry existed in every aspect of our lives in Gaza since we were kids. So the life you live there is poetry scattered all over the place. And that's why I say it's inspiring for anyone, but for poets more, because it's your job as a poet to rewrite those scenes, to gather those scenes and rewrite them again in the shape of a poem, in the form of a poem, and share it with the
yeah.
world. It is so inspiring.
Which also,
Uh,
it. I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
Oh, because you're also a journalist and a poet. And I was
Yeah.
just wondering, do you ever have a switch of the click moment when you started writing? What happens to you as a journalist and as a
Mhm.
poet? Do you differentiate the two, or do you come in writing a journalistic piece and a documentation of what's going on
Yeah.
around you, and you also realize when you're doing it as a poetry?
If I write poetry, I speak from my heart. If I write journalism, I speak from my mind.
Mm,
You know, so there is
yeah,
a difference. I need to be direct with the audience when I speak, when I talk, when I write for journalism. But
yeah,
I'm not free into poetry. But
mm,
I have to separate between them. I have to
mm,
draw a line when. Sometimes I forget myself when I'm writing a journalistic piece and write
yeah.
in the tone of a poet. Sometimes the editor will love this. Sometimes they will hate it.
Cut it
You
out.
know, yeah. But in the end, I feel. I mean, I grew up like this. I grew up
Mm,
with the tongue of a poet. I grew up with the eye of a poet. I grew up with the ear of a poet. So even when I write journalism, you will find something poetic in what I
mm,
write, and sometimes
mm.
not.
Well, this is interesting because do you keep a journal or a diary?
I use my phone honestly when I have
Mm,
something that I want to document. I
mm,
read like a line, two, three small paragraphs. Then I need to be alone. I need to be, caffeinated
yeah.
and have a little bit, some music, and then start to work on something. Yeah, that's how it
How
works for me.
I'm curious how's your journal or little notes would look like, because your mind is a journalist, but you're also a poet. Your tongue is a poet. Your eyes is a poet. Poet's eyes, and there's no editor in your journal and
Yeah,
your diary.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I it would be interesting because maybe it's a mix of those two, because you don't censor yourself in your diary.
I didn't hear the last line. Cut off. It's still off, right?
Right?
Yeah. I lost what you said because the internet cut off. If you could repeat the last line.
No, I said it'll be interesting to see. Probably. Oh, can you hear me now? Sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you now. Hello. I can hear you, Ray.
Oh, you can hear me?
Yes, yes.
I think my internet's acting up. Oh, okay. We can hear you. Okay. Um, well, I said it'll be interesting to probably dive into your journal or diary, because
Yeah.
it'll be a mix of both journalism but with poetry, and then some will
Yes.
take over the other and some
Yeah, yeah.
not, because you don't censor yourself in your diary, right? So it's
At all.
really all of you without censorship.
So you want me to read something from what I wrote? From what I have in my diary? Right.
Oh, sure.
Oh, what was the question? Like I didn't understand the question. You want me to write something, to read something from the diary, or answer the question, or what?
My video was lagging.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, my video was lagging, so I couldn't. Yeah, it wasn't clear. But I feel like it'll be interesting to probably see that if you're willing to share. But it's your diary, so I understand if it's private.
Um, sometimes, yeah. There's a short one that I would like to share from the diary called "The Prayer." Me and you at the beach, a horse in the sea, me watching myself, watching you. Winter is your presence, sunset is your absence. At 5 p.m., I left you a drawing on the beach. Then I came back, writing my laziness, my fear, and some of myself. For example, this diary was in January 2021. I was sitting on the beach and looking at the waves and looking at everything around me and everyone around me. And I wrote this. Then I found out it's a poem.
Yeah,
You
it's
see?
a really nice one too. Yeah.
And if I want like to write a story, like sometimes about if it is journalistic, like I capture a picture or I document it also in the journal.
Right.
So my journal
Okay,
or
now
diary
could
is
you
like
tell us about
poetry
the Gaza
and
Poets Society? Sorry. Yeah, I feel that's why I think it'll be interesting, because it's a collection of photos and then also journalism style writing, and then probably most of it would be poetry, because
yeah,
you were just sitting and then you wrote that beautiful piece. So
thank you. Thank you, Ray. Do you hear me? Hello.
I can hear you. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Because it's in my video, it's like lagging by 10 seconds or more.
It's okay. Like, we can keep on. Don't worry.
Okay. And now, could you tell us about the Gaza Poets Society? When
Yeah.
did you start it, and how did it become about?
Gaza Poets Society started in May 2018. I was like, I was looking for a place or a spoken word community in Gaza, and most of the poetry communities in Gaza are ones that called salons. They read classical Arabic poetry and share classical Arabic poetry, and rarely you will find communities that will share poetry in both English and in Arabic. And also, a spoken word community will be where you will be where will you be free to share spoken word, or if you stand-up comedy, whatever you want. Didn't find any place like that in Gaza, so I decided to create that place. I decided to build the first spoken word community in Gaza with a group of friends from outside Gaza. We created the first event. It was Gaza Youth Speaks. I invited the poets who are young and talented and aspiring to join me on that night and organized the first spoken word event. It was Gaza Youth Speaks, where more than 25 poets, male and female, joined the stage and stepped into the stage for the first time in their lives and expressed themselves in English and in Arabic. They shared poetry, they sang, and it was unforgettable night, honestly. And that's how it started. After that, I started to organize workshops, to organize weekly meetings where we connect with poets from all over the world, from the UK, from New Zealand, from US, and talk and share poetry in both languages. That's how the experience like got more and more exciting. After that, I had organized a second a poetry night. It was Hymns of Peace on November 28th, 2018. Then after that, Our Dreams Matter. The idea was to create a a monthly spoken word event, but there never was enough funding for doing something like that. And the struggle was always to find a space or a physical space where we could gather and meet, but we talk with the cultural institutions in Gaza, and we meet there and we share poetry there. Yes, and the struggle was to find a stage in Gaza because theaters are, we have only 2 to 3 cultural centers in Gaza. Israel, one of the most known cultural institutions in Gaza back in the day, in 2018. Yeah. So the struggle was always to find a place where you can be yourself in that place, in that city. And Gaza Youth, or Gaza Poets Society, through the first event and the second and the third, provided an environment for the young and talented poets and artists in Gaza to express themselves, share poetry, be themselves. And it was like a small environment, a small community where you can be yourself.
How did the Gaza Poets Society strive during the pandemic? We had an earlier conversation where we recognize a lot of events are online. There's music shows online, and has it helped the society or the community in what way? In any way, because everything now is based online?
The activity is more online nowadays. Like, we share online our writings, we work on upcoming anthologies, we connect with poets from all over the world, like international poets. We talk about everything. We share poetry. We didn't manage to do more events because of the pandemic. We didn't manage to find a space to gather again because of the pandemic. As you know, the pandemic started lately in Gaza. It was in August 2020. And the situation till now is still tough to handle. So it will be difficult to find a space to meet again, to connect again. But we cannot wait for things to get back normal and to be able to do more things with the community, invite more poets, highlight the works of more artists, and doing more spoken word communities and more visual content for the poets and the artists of Gaza.
I hope it pans out.
Thank you.
As you mentioned before, there's poetry in weddings, in times of war, in the eyes of an old man sitting in front of his small shop, mourning the death of his child, in the tears of a lover whose fiancé was murdered along with her entire family while she was sleeping in her house, in the blueness of Gaza's shores, which carries me to where I want to be and brings me back to who I was, in the flames of bombs falling on the heads of Gazans, heart-achingly and heartwarmingly. This place can definitely make you a poet. Does Gaza continue to inspire you now?
Every day. Gaza inspires me in its weakness, in its strength. Gaza inspires me when it's broken, when it's strong too. Gaza is always inspiring for me. The way the kids keep playing despite of all these wars and all these assaults. The way the sea smiles despite of all the bombs that it has swallowed. The way the streets still can hug people despite it has been bombed 1,000 times. The way that the bookshops still open their doors for the readers in Gaza, for the passionate readers and writers, despite they have been attacked in the recent war. The way that displays still can live despite being locked up for 14 years. The way the fishermen still can swim in the sea despite the warships that attack them. This city is inspiring. This city will always be inspiring. This city I mean, it's a blessing and a curse to be from a place like Gaza. You will always be proud,
Mm.
but you will always be broken,
Mm.
you know?
Yeah. Because what I realized in Flamingo as well, your poetries and your book is like a troubled love story for Gaza. What is it that you love
Definitely,
about Gaza?
definitely. Sometimes the relationship between me and Gaza is a love-love relationship, or a love-hate relationship, or a hate-hate relationship. So it differs. Sometimes I'm so in love with a city. Sometimes I hate that place so much. For
Mm.
example, when I'm alone, when I'm abandoned, when I feel like being in that place, I lose too much. I lose
Mm.
for my mental health will deteriorate. Sometimes when I feel like if I was born somewhere else, things would be way easier. Things would be, it would still be difficult, but it wouldn't be that tough or that difficult like being in Gaza and being from Gaza. The way I talk to Gaza is the way I talk to someone I love. Uh, and the people you
Mm.
love, sometimes you are so in love with them. And sometimes, like, there's a miscommunication or a small misunderstanding that will keep you away
Mm.
from each other, you know? So it's
Yeah.
I like how you describe that, like my relationship is a troubled love story. Because it is, honestly it is. But me in Gaza have always to talk, you know, through poetry, you know. And
Mm.
if I want to express my love to Gaza, I will talk to Gaza in the tone of
Yeah.
poetry, and I will express my love for that city. And if I am angry at that place or at this city, also I will express my anger. In the end, me and Gaza is how to say it, you know, we cannot be away from each other no matter
Mm.
what happens,
Yeah.
and we always have to talk to each other.
Right. You released Flamingo, which is your own book of poetry. Uh, what is that flamingo imagery has a significance for you? Because I also notice, if I'm not mistaken, it was the word flamingo shows up in the first poetry in the book, out of the window of this wound. What
Definitely,
is the
yeah.
significance of flamingo to you personally?
I mean, I love flamingos, but the inspiration to name it Flamingo was the poem Out of the Window of this Wand. A friend of mine recommended that name. But to me, I
Mm.
love flamingos, you know, and the the lines in that poem, you know, was so touching for me. You know, I don't know
Yeah.
why. After I read that poem and found that my friend chose like it should be the first poem,
Mm.
I said like I would say Flamingo would be suitable for that collection, and I said yes to her when she recommended the name. But as I
Mm.
mentioned, the poem, if you want me, I can read the poem, and
Yes,
and
please.
maybe when the audience will listen to the poem, they will realize why it was Flamingo.
Mm.
Out of the
Yes.
window of this wand, I whisper the names of my grandparents over the hill village where the house I never knew sits. I see aging olive trees and those flamingos called freedom. Out of the window of this wand, I chant the old songs for our bleeding villages where we cannot return, for the injured and the killed on the border of their dreams. with their ribbed kites, the burning tires, and homemade masks. Out of the window of the swand, the jasmine attempts to ease the stench of tires, tear gas, fresh blood. Out of the window of the swand, cloistered in the false darkness of my bedroom, I sing for my war-torn self, watch the skies for clues, for flares or flamingos. If you see, it was about freedom.
Yeah. Thank you
And
so much for sharing
the
that
way
with us.
the way I see flamingos is something far away from me, something beautiful. And this is the way I see freedom. Something far away, standing far away from me, and something so beautiful, and something I miss.
Mm. And it's
Maybe that's
also
my flamingo.
flamingos only travel in packs, right?
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. So it's that hits harder for me, especially when you use the plural at the end.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Well, now you run your own podcast. How important is it for you to communicate with the outside world?
Well, it was a different story. The podcast was a way to connect with the world outside Gaza, to see, to talk to international artists, to talk to international poets, activists, mental health advocates. To It was a way to connect and to see how the world is outside the walls of this prison, you know. And I spent the last year talking to people from every corner, of the world, getting to know them, the struggles and the challenges. Being in Gaza, didn't give me the chance to travel to meet those people. The pandemic too. So it was a good opportunity to invite all these young and aspiring people and have interesting conversations with them, talking about art, talking about poetry, talking about politics, talking about literature, talking about mental health. The conversations I had in the podcast are a thing of a beauty that I still remember till now. Those people, each one of these guests left something in me as a host or as a human being or as a poet. The conversations were very, very beautiful to understand the other, to know the other, and to explore the other.
What kind of guests have you interviewed for the podcasts? You mentioned poets
Artists,
and other
international
people. Yeah.
poets, artists, mental health advocates, activists, peace activists, writers, who else? Dancers, actors. Yeah, those people. Hello.
Hello?
Yeah.
I
Did
can
you hear
hear
me?
you. Yeah. Yeah. So your guest is from all over the world, right?
Yeah. From New Zealand, from US, from UK,
Hello? Okay.
from
What is it?
from all over the world. Yeah.
What does it mean for you to have that window to the world?
Oh, honestly, it was like you feel like I felt like I traveled the world, like talking
Mm.
to all these people from all over the world, from New Zealand, from US, from UK. Where else? Talking to Palestinians in the diaspora, talking to from Jordan. Felt like it was a way to skip the siege. You know, it was a way to forget about the, the neglected freedom of movement as a Gazan and freedom of expression. It was a way to understand the other. It was a way to see the other from the window of the podcast. It was a way to see others' challenges, others' successes, and learn and reflect on yourself. But most importantly,
I
as a
gotta say, it's
Gazan,
really.
it
Oh,
provided
sorry.
a window. It provided a window to see the other behind the huge walls of this large open air prison.
Yeah, I gotta say, like, it's really beautiful what you're doing because you're also providing these voices from outside the world to Gaza and the people in Gaza. So I
Yeah, yeah.
really admire you for it.
Thank you so much.
Because the power is in the community
Definitely.
and the people. Yeah. Speaking of people, what are your hopes for the people of Gaza?
My hope for the people of Gaza to have a better future, to have an airport again, to lift the occupation, to be a free place, a free city, Palestine to be free, so everyone can live a normal life and avoid the loss of Palestinian lives. And I want the upcoming generations to have a better future, less blood, more hope, less killing, more life. I want the world to, I want the next generation to have a country or a city that they can live a day without the sound of the helicopters or the Apache or the F-16s. I want a newborn kid to born and not listen to these sounds anymore, or do not identify these sounds, because I have like nephews and nieces who are 2 years old, 3 years old. I never wanted them to experience wars since the 2014 war. They weren't born at that time. I didn't want them to experience wars, but they did and experienced wars in May this year. So I don't want those newborn kids to experience the feeling of losing to grow up with the feeling of losing your loved ones, or to hear the sound of Apache again, or the sound of a helicopter, or to see the tanks like I did when I was 7 years old, or to see the soldiers. I want them to live a normal, free life where freedom with its different forms to be there, freedom of will, freedom of movement, freedom of expression, to not be humiliated when they travel, because I've seen how
Yeah.
humiliating to travel if you are a Gazan or if you are a Palestinian. So that's what I want for them. I want a better place. I want them to be able to live a normal, free life where there is no occupation and there are no wars.
It's really scary imagining it became your normal life, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't imagine.
They ask just for a normal life. Like, can you imagine this when someone just asks for a normal life?
Yeah.
That's which is a basic
To
right.
me, I think the greatest crime would be when, yeah, to me, like, the biggest crime would be robbing someone of a basic right, or losing, having stolen someone's autonomy.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, for our final question, why do you think poetry is so powerful to you?
I mean, why I feel helpless answering questions regarding poetry, like definition of poetry and the influence of poetry and the
Yeah.
importance of poetry. You just don't know why. it is so important. I mean, the way poetry is so wonderful to hear, so beautiful to hear. Like, as a kid, why I would love poetry? I love to hear poetry. I love the poetry when I see it written on the murals and still and lived with me all these years, or
Yeah.
listen to the poetry in the songs and lived with me all these years. You feel like there's something magical about poetry that is so simple yet so complicated. You know, like when I wanted to speak to the world in the tone of a poet, or I would say a poetry lover, in 2014, and I found that the word listened more to me when I spoke in the tone of a poet. You see, because poetry is a tool that is, I mean, it's hard to identify poetry. It's hard to say why it is so important, but poetry is so important. That's why. If you see like the national Palestinian poet like Mahmoud Darwish, how he inspired me all these years to write poetry, how he inspired generations and generations of Palestinians to understand their cause, to understand their what they're going through. Like, why wouldn't you say poetry is important? You see how it's impacting the lives of millions and millions around the world. Poetry is so important in our lives, and you cannot say why poetry is important, but all you can say that poetry is super necessary in our lives. It's so important to write poetry. It's so important to read poetry. It
Yeah.
is so important to, I mean, I don't know. I feel lost when I talk about poetry, but poetry is necessary in our lives.
Yeah. It kind of provides you an eyesight too and a perspective, the way you see the world.
Hmm?
Yeah.
I didn't hear you.
Oh, you didn't
I
hear
didn't
me?
hear one.
Sorry.
No, no.
Uh, I I said poetry provides you with some kind of perspective and eyesight to see the world.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. It's a
I
window.
think
It's a
with what you
self-reflection.
did is you use it to see. Yeah. And with Flamingo, because that's so far the only written pieces that I've read of yours, you use it in a way to bring some hope in the midst of
Definitely,
adversity, in the midst of difficulties.
definitely to provide the hope. It has provided a refuge for me all these years from everything I had experienced, from everything I lived and everything I live. I still live. It's hard. I always like to describe poetry as the sugar of misery.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
mean, when you write things in poetry, things feels lighter again, lighter on
Yeah.
the heart, lighter on the shoulders. You don't know why, but when you write something that you you felt at a moment in your life, and you go back to that thing, and you read that poem again, you feel like there is something. It feels that experience feels lighter right now. That memory, no matter how
Yeah.
bitter or how sweet it is, feels lighter. So I will
Yeah.
always say poetry is the sugar of misery, honestly.
That is beautiful. Well,
Thank
thank
you
you
very
so
much.
much, Mohammed Moussa, for having us talking to you.
No, thank you.
It's
My
really
pleasure was
wonderful.
mine. Thank you for your time, and thanks for the wonderful questions.
I'll be telling my friends about Flamingo.
I would appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Okay.
And thank you for
Thank you for
everyone involved in the
supporting.
festival.
Yeah. Thank you for supporting the event.
My pleasure. I'm so honored to be part of the event.
Okay, guys, with that, thank you for supporting the Yayasan Muda Swari Saraswati Patrons Program and to the festival's partners who made the Ubud Writers and Readers Festival possible. Follow Ubud Writers Festival on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, or visit ubudwritersfestival.com for more information about the program. See you on the next one.
Salam.